I want to thank everybody for showing up. I'm sorry it was a kind of a last
Recording
minute
in
notice
progress.
on this particular day for this particular item, but we received bids that came back, and we have to get on their schedule depending on what you all want done. And so that's why we had to get this rolling right away, or otherwise we would miss that window for scheduling. We have the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife has us kind of squeezed into a window that we can do work, and we have to get on these people's schedule, and that's statewide. So everywhere where they do work, they've got a lot smaller window to get their work done in than if it was open for them for the year on that. So I hope everybody's got a handout. Anybody don't have one? Oh, good. I appreciate you all coming. We wanted to just go over what we know and want to get feedback from the public on what you would like to see done with this. And so one of the things that we at the city think would be the best way to spend our money is to purchase a harvester and hire a worker for that. And you'll see that in the handout there. We have some examples of harvesters. We don't know which one will fit us best for that. So we just put a couple examples in there for you all to see. Obviously, if you look at the pricing, the treating the water with chemicals is the cheapest way to go. But I think most people, I know myself personally, I'd like to get away from that. And I think a lot of people would. So one of the examples with doing some harvesting there is we will have to still do some spot treatments because the harvester can't get into everywhere, but it can take a lot of that out. They treated 163 acres last year, and so that's the amount of area that we're looking at doing it again on that. We think that the smartest way to do this, because it's really expensive, you look at that. The smartest way to do this, but it's going to be up to you all if that's what you'd like to go with, is we should get our own harvester and hire somebody to do it. Harvesting you can do a year-round kind of. So we have summertime help that we can bring in, and they are allowed to work. I think it's got May to October, 6 months.
6 months.
And that's probably a pretty good window to get that work done. You're not going to be out there in the wind and the rain and stuff trying to harvest. So, but this year we're looking at doing some harvesting and some spot treatment. Or if you guys don't want to spend that much money, we can look at doing the same chemical treatment as we've done before. But I really don't like that. So anyway, that's kind of the intro to this. It's your meeting, and I want to hear from you on what you would like to see done. So if somebody would like to come to the mic and speak and let us know what you think, that would be awesome on that. Well, they like to hear it on the TV. Maybe we should move this around, Allison, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay, so the tall spiky stuff that comes up along the sides, the harvester would get that?
I doubt it. Are you talking about the cattails? Cattails? I don't know that they
Yes.
would take the cattails out. They pretty much got to stay center of the canals
Oh, okay.
on that. Now, if you'll see in there, the hardware store has rakes. And I know a lot of people, and that's part of why we have the composting, to be honest with you. Because there's people that have tried to clean up around their docks and do that kind of stuff, which is super helpful for the whole community, but there was nowhere to take it. Now we have a free place to take your composting, your grass clippings, your weeds out of the water, and put it in that dumpster. And that's manned from 11 to 3:30 on Saturdays. And that's free to the public, and you can dump your stuff. And so I'm hoping with the rakes that are now available to buy at the hardware store, that people that wanted to clean up their areas would be more inclined to do that because there's somewhere to take the weeds where there wasn't in the past. So, yes.
Question, how long would it take to recoup our money if we buy this machine? Is there like a proximity of time that, and how much are we spending a year now? And with this, no chemicals, correct?
That's correct. We might still have to do some spot treating just because you can't get into every area with that harvester, but it would be limited. We've been dumping chemicals in the canals everywhere. And so if we get the harvester in there and clean that out, we'd have some spot areas, maybe underneath the bridges. I was told they might not be able to get the harvester in some of the spots there, but that's what we're looking at. As far as recouping, you see how expensive, I mean, we got a quote for 200 and some thousand for harvesting 163 acres. So we'd recoup it pretty fast. We could have that working for many years. It's $20 an hour for the worker to be on there. So it's pretty, it's going to be inexpensive if you look at a 5-year picture of that.
I can add a little, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so on the cost and recouping that cost, because that's obviously a great question. So the harvesting process is really slow. These boats at maximum go 5 miles an hour, but when they're actually harvesting, they go about 2. They can treat, even a really modern harvester can only treat about 2 acres per day. So if we're paying a company to do this and we're renting the boats from them, it gets extremely expensive to do, to the point where even in the course of the year, it could, just for the rental and the boats alone, go over $313,000. So if we buy one and use our own crew, it is definitely in the long-term best interest of the city. And the other advantage is by the fact that we own it. They recommend when we harvest, you don't just harvest once. They say it can even take 2 or 3 times in some of the thicker weeded areas. So we can send them out at our convenience, kind of at our leisure, rather than have to go back and pay and schedule, a bid and a treatment time for others. So that's it. It is in our advantage to buy it.
Okay, 2 last questions. They don't like me at meetings. Prevailing wage, is this a prevailing wage when you hire somebody to do this?
I believe
Yes,
it
it would
is,
be.
yeah.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
Anyone who works for the city would be prevailing wage. On a
Okay, I'm
contract.
talking about if we contract
Yes,
it out.
that's what I meant.
So that wage is a lot higher than $20. It's more like 44, I believe, somewhere up in there for the worker. So do we have the money set aside to buy one of these? Or is there going to be a special assessment?
I can answer part of that question. So we had $270,000 that was set aside for both spraying and for harvesting. We have about $190,000 left, so we would need to obviously request money from different funds in order to do this. But it would not be, the city wouldn't be on the liability for the full amount. We've already put money aside for that possibility.
And the $20 is in their collective bargaining agreement, so with the union, so we can pay $20 an hour. It's fine. Yeah.
Quick question. We purchased a harvester. Do you have somebody in the city that could work on it for maintenance? I mean, that is something I'd be worried about. Or do we have to contract that out? Or
Well, we have a mechanic that works
Yes.
for the city.
but is a mechanic able to work on this? I mean, is it a particular machine where it takes a specific type of person to work on it, a type of mechanic, or no?
No.
Yeah, but we would also look into a warranty, obviously, if we were to purchase this, because it would be an expensive purchase. So,
Right.
and they do. There's high-end harvesters. There's a whole bunch of options we can go in this, in looking at it. But obviously, we have a really unique canal system with our 163 acres. There's a lot of variations that are in it. So we obviously want to get the best piece of equipment we can get for the city that'll last as long as it can.
And we have a really good mechanic working, and obviously he works on dump trucks, SUVs, whatever kind of equipment we have. And we also have talented public works people that can do welding and those kinds of things too. So I think that we'll be in pretty good shape, but obviously we want to get as good a warranty as possible on that.
Do we have any idea what the annual maintenance on that would be?
I do not.
No.
How close to the shore can they get?
I believe that depends on the type of harvester. I have seen some that are extremely low, but I think we would be looking at something to get as much out of the middle of the water as possible. But these are kind of good questions we have to think about if we go to the purchasing of it.
That's a question we haven't asked on that, but we've been told by two of the contractors that they pretty much have to go down, the middle. They can't get around the docks. When it comes to the docks that are out in the water, they're not going to turn in and go against the shore and come back out around the docks. They're going to stay between the docks when they go down the canals.
You said that there was 190,000 plus left over or set aside. Does that include the cost that if we didn't do this, would that include the cost of the chemicals, or do we still have to spend money on the chemicals? So if we have 190,000 set aside and we're not buying as much chemical, it sounds like we may have near enough money to get this started.
So here's the estimate. I'll just give you the numbers rather than answer because it's hypothetical. I really can't answer. So in our spraying budget, we have $130,000 right now. That's for spraying. We estimate that chemical treatment would cost $90,000. That's the roughly if we just did chemical and no harvesting. Obviously, if we do the harvesting, the amount of areas that will need chemical treatment would go down greatly. It'd be those places that the boats can't reach. What those actual numbers are at this point, guesses.
The thing about the harvester, too, it's going to take a lot of that biomass out of there. And so if we do have to do some spot treating, it's going to be killing a lot less vegetation. We have a ton of that vegetation laying on the bottom of that water every year. And so that just is basically perpetuating our problem to make it worse all the time because we're dumping fertilizer down there basically for these plants to grow. Yes, sir.
Grant Schaefer. I've been here 27 years. I'm a naval architect. And are you aware that we built our own harvester here about 20 years ago and harvested back in 2005 and got about 120 bags, about 6 foot diameter and 12 foot in long, hauled them out of the lake without any seedlings going off. And they're trying. I parked it out front.
Yeah, we've seen it.
You may have seen it,
Yeah.
and we're looking for help and support to put it back together again because back then we had a handicap. We only used the bottom cutters. It's got 3 cutters, one for each side and the bottom, and it's designed for a one-man operation. It's built to be simple. And it's built to be low cost. And so right now, thanks to the Freshwaterway Corporation, we've got about $32,000 in it, and we own it. And so now we're trying to get it put back together with all 3 blades working, and it will, it's astounding. The only time we stop is if we have to change bags or someone has to go to the potty.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can imagine what those cutters do. And seeing those bags when we haul them out, they're enormous. And if we get support from the city to get more access points, to get a garage that we can work on it and keep it out of the weather, we could use it when we want it and when we need it, and using our own people and a few fishing, like make about 6 fishermen in their little boats. That's all we need to get the weeds back. That's how we make it so much cheaper. And so it was a phenomenal success back in 2005. And I'm surprised there's no recognition of. I've got newspaper articles and photographs of it here and how successful we were. But we just need to put it back together again, and we could be in business.
All right, thanks. We'll talk more. You stopped by the office, and we chatted for a while one day. Yeah.
I'd still like to know, is there a planned assessment to the people on the property to pay on the regular basis for this ongoing, or even to pay for this now?
We have no plan for that, but if you'd like to volunteer.
No. The other question I have is, while the harvest, is there a restriction on the harvester as far as certain canals have a certain depth? Like my canal's very narrow and only has a 6-foot depth. Would they even be able to come down my canal and even clean any of that up?
Yeah, my understanding, looking at some of the specs on them, they're adjustable depth-wise. So.
And width-wise, that's not a...
Well, width, I don't remember what the width of them were. You can see in there, in that handout, if you got that, they're, maybe 6-8 feet wide. I don't know how narrow your canal is.
I have a question about the canal rake. As a property owner on the canal, I'd like to do my part to keep my area clean, but I have no idea what I can take out, what I can clean out, how to use the rake in the water. Is there someone that could offer a class on what we're allowed to take out and how to use it?
There's information on the website, but we could, if the people, our citizens, are really interested, we could get Marshall Reed, our planner, who's sort of an expert on that, or even someone from Marshall Reed and Fish and Wildlife to come in and give a presentation to citizens to kind of inform them on what can be done. That's something we could definitely arrange.
All right.
Richard Wills, and I want to make very clear I am speaking as a trustee in the waterways, as an Ocean Shores resident, not as a council member. I tried the rake about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm a pretty big guy and pretty strong, at least a few years ago. I could not pull that rake through the weeds and up onto the shore. I put the rake on the bank and used a 3-prong garden rake. And then I was able to get the weeds away from my dock. So that's a rake is a great idea, but my personal experience is I'd have to be 10 times stronger than I am in order to effectively use that rake. Thank you.
Yeah, I would think you'd probably want to take small bites at it. Yeah.
We have a rake, and it's a V shape and it has the blades. And I'm a small person, and I can use it without any problem. And then I just use a regular rake, garden rake, to pull it up out of the water. So it's never been an issue. I don't know what type that Richard Wills has, but what we have works very well. And we do have another one of those rakes also that we use in our yard. Thank you.
All right.
I have one of those rakes also, and when I first purchased my property, I hauled out 2 truckloads of weeds, so I'm very grateful the city's got the recycling, composting now. Basically, all you have to do is you just toss it out in the water, and it's got a rope, and you can just bring it back in, and you let the weeds dry out on your dock or your yard for a day or two, and then you can take them down for the composting. But it works really good. Super easy. Like I said, I hauled 2 truckloads out.
Diane, did you look at do you have, hold on a second. I want to ask her a question before you run off with the mic.
Where'd she go?
Did you look at the examples that were there at the hardware store? Is that similar to what you're using?
I did. It's they have all the pieces. It looks like what they'll do is they'll give you guidance on what to get and how to put it together and stuff, but super easy. It'll float. So when you toss it out, it floats and you just pull it in. It really is easy. And I've got a bad back, so.
All right, thanks.
I still have a concern that there are, I'm first of all going to include, I want to preface this, I'm including myself in this group. There are a lot of single female, there are a lot of elderly, there are a lot of people that cannot go out into that water and clean up their waterfront. So what about those those will be treated by chemicals or whatever, or, that'll continue to build up, it seems like. How do you address those issues?
To be honest with you, we haven't thought of every scenario that could, come up. But that's some of the stuff they talked about when we talked to the contractors, spot treating. So.
Back to the weed harvesters.
Yes.
Is there a company that performs that service that we know of?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
So
we had 2 companies bid on the work here.
okay. I was wondering if we did a 1 to 2 year trial basis to see how it pans out. And-
No, the
99
99,000.
and 158 are 2 that we picked off. We haven't researched this out because we don't know we're buying one, But we just wanted to give some examples for you all to look at. There's some that are even more expensive than that.
I mean, like for a contractor to come in and do this with their machines, did you get bids on that?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so that's what we have. So I'll just read you really briefly what I've got sitting in front of me. So if Ocean Shores harvested that amount, normalization costs would be about $313,000. The actual harvesting would cost almost $700,000, and then there would be also contractor fees and disposal fees. So the key is, we obviously, that's why we want to talk to the public about this. It's not a cheap endeavor. But the advantage to buying this is, one, as the woman in the back was saying, and I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, we would have more control over how we did this than if we went out to a contractor to do it. And the costs are much less. But I just want to keep everyone in mind right now, with the exception of what Mr. Schaefer was saying about earlier, right now we are only chemically treating. We haven't been doing harvesting for a number of years. So it's new, and that's just kind of why we're having this first discussion. We definitely don't have all the answers, but the first thing the mayor said when I heard him say chemical treatment is I heard a lot of grumbling and groans in the audience, and it sounds like that's not the direction you want to go. And that's what we're just confirming kind of right now.
And the contractor wanted to go 2-3 times over the same area because they say it grows, and it's like cutting the lawn. And so that's why it's run up to $300,000 on that. Some of the stuff that we've read, because we've looked into this, is depending on the depth, it may not come back for that year. So there's a lot of variables. As you know, we got areas that are 2 feet deep, and we got areas 8 feet deep in the canals, and so it's definitely a lot of variables in how that's going to work out. But if we have a harvester and we have an employee, then we can get after it when it's needed, and it'll save a lot of money for the public in that fashion. Yes.
My name is Mary Jo Simon, and I live on the lake, and I have, excuse me. I've lived on the lake for going on 8 years now, and everything has gotten worse the longer we wait. I vote that we hurry, buy the machine, hire some people, and just get it cleaned up. And don't wait another year or so to start it, please.
Yeah, and we had something come to council that was proposed to hire a manager of basically our fresh waterways. And that I'm happy that did not get passed by the council. And what I wanted to do at that time was hire worker bees, not a manager. And so we can get some people out there and start working and cleaning things up. So that's the direction we're going, if you guys want to do that.
I was going to ask in regards to the harvester itself, wintertime storage and keeping it out of the weather. That's going to be a big thing around here.
absolutely. So we'll have to figure that part out. I don't know exactly the numbers and how big or long it is. I mean, we have some space, and so we might have to juggle some equipment around. But in reality, we do need more storage for other pieces of equipment that we have.
Okay. And in regards to the one worker, he's running the harvester just fine. He's got a full load. Does he have to haul it all the way back to where he can take it? I mean, that's some of the plant. I think this is what the gentleman was saying here. He drops them off. You gotta get the grass or the weeds out of that location.
That's correct. That's what it looks like. We're gonna, what we've talked about, Scott and I, is contacting some of the owners of some of the lots that don't have anything on them, and possibly seeing if they would allow us to park there and pull the weeds off the harvester and take them out that way, so we don't have to run all the way back to a park and a dock.
Well, that also means that you need a way of getting the weeds and the bags or whatever else into a truck and then hauling the truck away and disposing of it.
That's correct.
That all has to be part of that puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just briefly, when the gentleman from California came up, he's from Aquatic Harvesting, and we went around and looked at all the various spots and how we would be doing this. This is kind of a pre-part of the proposal package. And so we were trying to identify, various parks, Texmark Park, some of the smaller ones on the canals, areas that we could access that could do that. And there aren't enough. It's true. We would have to ask. We would probably go out and ask if there are private citizens. Because, like I said, the range of this is limited. We're talking something that's moving 2 miles an hour. It's going to clean an area, and then it's going to have to dispose of that. And Grant may even know more about that than anyone else sitting here, because he's obviously been doing it before.
Just a comment about the people who aren't able to do it themselves. We have a high school here with a lot of strong young men and women who probably would love to be hired during the summer to do that work for you. So pay them $20 an hour to come do it for you if you can't do it yourself.
In trying to fine tune which harvester is the best, I would agree that the $99,000, the less expensive, it's 12 inches, and we need to start. There's plenty of areas where we can't get in real deep. It's got lighter and rust resistant. For what we need to start with, I would say that the smaller unit will have as much a good effect here. We're not into big waves or anything like that. And it might be easier to maintain also. Thank you.
Question regarding the purchase agreement. Would there be any consideration of trying to contract a maintenance agreement along with that purchase with that manufacturer?
That's a good point. I guess probably that depends on where it comes from.
Right.
If we're coming from the Midwest or something, that's going to be tough to do. I don't know of any local manufacturers, but we haven't looked for every manufacturer of that type of equipment.
And one other thing, I have a question for the gentleman that has the one out in the parking lot. He said this was a phenomenal, operation back in 2005, and I'm just wondering, where he's been for the last 20 years. Then, like what's been done or hasn't been done, or why it hasn't been done.
About a year ago, if you go by Texmark Park, the boat ramp there was unusable. You couldn't really launch anything in there. And that was actually waded into, and the weeds were basically pulled up out of there and hauled to the roadside where the sign's at there for Texmark Park, and our City Works Department hauled all that off. And so we have been doing harvesting out here to a certain extent, And there was also a council person that was looking into harvesters. And if you go on the website, there's several companies, they're around Florida area and down around there that actually manufactures harvesters. And they're tried and true. I mean, they actually work. And there's tutorials on there that shows you how they actually work. So if you have questions about the mechanics of a harvester, that would probably be a good way to kind of start off looking on them. They actually have them that can sit and swirl. They can turn 360 degrees in a certain area. They have like a paddle wheel on them, like the old paddle wheels that we run up and down the Missouri River. So they're very functional. The challenge you're going to run across on it isn't so much the harvesting on it, but you don't want it to stop. What you need is a offload boat to where what you harvest you can haul off as it's harvesting. So you'd probably be looking at like maybe a pontoon type boat on it. But I would suggest if you have any types as far as the way they're built or anything on it, it's pretty much they can build them or they have them out there that'll suit any type of waterways.
My name is Jim Edwards, and I live on the canals. Have we looked into what any of the state requirements would be to have a boat out there with all these cutters on it, the L&I and employment security and, the liability insurance and stuff like that? Or are we pre that?
I mean, yeah, the majority of it we would qualify for. I mean, we haven't looked into the absolute details of what it would do, but obviously it can be contracted. So if it can be contracted, it's probably something that the city can do for L&I purposes. But it's obviously all those things we'd have to. The biggest obstacle, honestly, would be Fish and Wildlife and just making sure that we're operating in their windows more than from a public works aspect.
Quick question to go back to your comment. You don't know where you're going to store this. So this is just preliminary. You want to buy it, but you don't know where you're going to store it, and you don't know if the mechanics can actually work on it.
We want to know if you want to buy it. That's why we're having this meeting.
Okay, well, if we have a place to store it, and if we have people that can work on it, do you have mechanics that have looked at this to see, that we have in the city that can actually work on this? I mean, are they easy to work? Okay, well, I'm not. Okay, so, but we got to have the other plan in place. It can't say, oh yeah, go ahead and buy it, but it's going to sit out in the weather, and we got to do the other part of it. Can people work on it? Can we store it? So,
we have people that can work on it. We got to look at the size that we purchased to find out where we can store it.
I just wanted to thank you for having this and being looking at the long term and not just the instant fix with chemicals. And if you're looking for a property owner to say they want one of these machines, I'm definitely one of them, and limit the chemicals as much as possible. And then also I want to second some kind of a class on the weeds and what you can pull and not pull, because there is a really great website, a lot of information, but it's a lot of information. So something that was a little bit more simplified for all of us that maybe are not experts in this would be really appreciated.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Randy Peck. In regards to storage, for 10, 15 years, we didn't have a place to even put the police boat until it deteriorated, and last year we got the pontoon replaced on it for $15,000 versus a new one for $122,000. I did the research, and that's why it got fixed. The question on this thing is, I know we've had the harvester that was home built, but the issue with that one was the Elodia and things that are on the bottom were spread. We can't touch the bottom because that require environmental impact statements per our SMP. So, and the pennyworts is a native plant here. So are we going to collect that too? The gentleman mentioning Florida, hyacinths there have been a problem since '01. And yes, they do have the equipment there to pull out the hyacinths that grow and clog all their waterways and canals and irrigation and also drainage canals. The cattails and a lot of the plants on the side is brought up by the a lady up in the front. Many of those are beneficial. Those cattails act as organochemical absorbers. In fact, the gentleman from Pond Place worked with Aberdeen and the state, et cetera, putting them in around the port because any of the runoff from the roads, et cetera, that captured all the petrochemicals and they used them. Allowing people to do their own weed collection bothers me because then you end up with the whole side of the canal or lake denuded of anything, and now you have the sand because of the erosion dumping into our already shallow lakes. I think before we buy this thing, we should look at places like the Chancellor Channel and see what permitting, et cetera, we're going to need to dredge that because it's already pretty much closed off. And I'm sure there's other channels in town where there is no passage, you can't get through to them anymore because of the growth. It's sort of our priorities, you know, for water flow and things of that nature need to be brought up to, I'll call it, snuff also. Thank you.
Yeah, Randy, would dredging help us? Yeah, absolutely. But that's a super expensive endeavor to dredge all this stuff on that. And as far as the pennywort goes, we're allowed to spray and kill it. So I'm sure that we're allowed to harvest it. But that's things that we would check out as far as what we can and can't do.
I want to thank you as well for having this meeting. I think the questions that have been coming up are brilliant. I want to thank everybody for participating. I'm supportive of doing something other than chemicals, and to me it makes fiscal sense to buy our own equipment as long as we can store it properly and have maintenance for it, etc. I just am not certain that we might be jumping the gun to try and get this done so quickly to maybe do it this year because there are so many great questions here that need to be answered. It may not be something that immediately should be addressed because, like I say, there's an awful lot of good questions here. So, but thank you again for doing this, and it's been very informative to me.
Thanks. Yeah, we don't know, obviously, every question that's going to be asked, but we have to decide here in the next week or so if we're going to hire for the harvesting to be done. So that's what prompted this meeting to be kind of a last minute thing, which I apologize for. But we had to come up with a yes or no on the bids that we received. I think buying the harvester is not what is going to do much work this year. We're going to have to get the thing planned out, like you say, and look at everything we can't do, what size we want to get. There's a lot of unanswered questions with the whole process, but if that's what the public wants, then at least we have a goal and we have a direction that we can head in.
Hi. I would like for it to happen sooner than later. And I know there's a lot of planning going on, but like she says, the lake is getting messy. The canals, there's, let's see, Fishhook? Is that that's a hard one to go through. I mean, I live on the canal, and I would love to see something. My canal's okay. And our side, my husband, he gets in the water and he pulls. So we don't have any issues. But there are so many that we really need to address them, and they are a part of the city works, right? So, sooner the better.
Well, we plan on doing something this year. It's just to come up and buy a harvester and get all this in place for this year. The timing's not there for us, but moving forward, we can do that for next year.
Yeah, and we honestly, we don't even, to underscore what the mayor's saying, we don't even understand what the log is to purchase equipment. And I only bring this up because ever since COVID, it has been a continual problem. Whenever we've gone out to purchase major equipment for public works, it's always 6-7 months out. So if we find the right harvester that's going to work perfect for Ocean Shores, we may not get it in 60 days. That's all I'm saying.
Hi, I know I'm a little late, so you may have already covered this, but it seems to me that until we know what we're harvesting, it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy a harvester. We did this once before, and we spread Eladia throughout our system. We used a harvester. We didn't understand the nature of the Eladia, when to do it, how to do it. And until we have an in-depth survey of our waterways and we know what's there, I couldn't support doing another harvesting. It cost us dearly last time.
Well, we have a lot of information from the contractors on what can and can't be done. That's why we're going to hire one this year. And we'll look at the harvesting. I'm unaware of the city buying a harvester. Does anybody know about that?
I think are you referring to grants, the Fresh Waterways Corporations?
Spread it. It chopped up the milfoil and spread it throughout the waterway system.
Right. That's what it does if you cut it like that.
And the harvesters that I have seen examined, and I haven't seen the ones that you're talking about, were not free from that problem. And it seems to me that before we start on any major endeavor, we better know what's in our lake. I know that was the plan a couple of years ago. I don't know whatever happened with that. But as the gentleman said a couple of weeks ago, our Fresh Waterways group used to go out and sample the water all through the lake, sample the areas that were infested with something, and we had some idea of what we were getting into. I don't get the feeling that we know that today. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I was going to say that we do have indeed like 3 professional proposals from groups, so that is all they specialize in: Northwest Aquatics, Aquatechnics, aquatic harvesting. These are their recommendations to us. They do know what they're doing. They've been doing it professionally in the state of Washington, and they've all worked in the state of Washington and Oregon. So they are experts. The only problem is if we go with this experts and ask them to do all of it, the cost is significantly higher than if we do it ourselves. Now, what we do this year, we may have them just clean out some of the worst areas and do mild chemical treatment. I don't know. We're just trying to get a kind of a long-term sort of plan from what citizens want. And if this is the harvesting direction we want to go, we want to make sure that we take that long-term perspective and not invest a lot of money into contractors if we can be investing it into the city at less cost and we can get more done long-term.
Okay. Next question. Is this the shelf price or is this a bid price for these machines?
That's a shelf price. We just put those on as examples is all, just to give you all some kind of an idea of some of the costs. That's all.
And how much do you think we'll lose this year compared to buying one? So if you had 190, are we going to spend 300,000 to get the work done out there this year?
We don't have 300,000.
Okay, how much are the bids? What are the bids looking like?
We got about 190,000 right now
To buy the machine.
No, to do the work or buy the machine, one or the other on that. So we wanted to know what direction you all wanted to go in.
I'm for the harvester to buy this at the best price and get going on it and save the money from the contractor, spend it here and take care of it ourselves.
Well, we'll do some looking next week and see what, like Scott said, equipment has been slow to get purchased. There's a lot of delays on things, so that'll be definitely part of our decision for this year.
I'd like to address the lady that has that's saying that we don't have any information about what is in our lake. I sat in this room almost 2 years ago when a company that we had paid a considerable amount of money came up with their findings about what we have where and this big long thing. And all they did was present what we supposedly have in our lake and didn't offer any solutions, and nothing happened. So their information is there. We just need to spread it to the residents before they start doing their own work.
Thank you. Mayor, you said that you have to decide in a week, and I'm confused as to what exactly it is that you have to decide in a week. I understand you're getting information from people as to whether or not they want to purchase a harvester future, but what is it that's happening in the week?
We have to get with the contractors so we can get on their schedule. And so, what's that? Either.
So we have proposals. Some involve spraying, some involve harvesting, and some involve a combination of both. And so that's before we make a decision on that. Before we, the cheapest one, obviously, is to just go with the proposal that was advocating for chemical treatment. But I know that citizens have been not happy with chemical treatment in the past, and that's why the mayor said, let's have a town hall and let's discuss which direction we want to go.
So it's tough with the scheduling because there's a window that you can do this work, and there's not that many companies that do it. So that's the urgency, is to get on their schedule, whatever we decide to do.
Robert Doring. Why don't we look at the Freshwater Ways Corp's machine to run this summer and still purchase the new one, but at least we have it being done?
Well, we got to look at it. I don't know what kind of repairs it needs and the cost for that. But yeah, we'll look at that, Robert.
Randy Peck again. In regards to chemicals, all we have to do is look at the side of our roads. For how many years have we not done chemicals, and we haven't found a solution for the edges of our roads, which soon we're going to retire those bonds, and that means our next road LID isn't far behind. That was $44 million the last time. And you can imagine that was 2011, what it's going to cost now. Why don't we, and if we have professional, this is going to be an ongoing problem, the weeds in the fresh waterways. It's not going to miraculously wave a wand and go away.
We've never said that, Randy.
I understand that. What I'm trying to say is, let me finish my statement. If we have the professionals come and they get a sufficient knockdown, then we can then pick up with our own harvester and continue the work. Because it's obviously a harvester isn't going to show up for this year. So therefore, waiting this year and letting it grow, let's have the professionals come in. You spend the money. This is going to be out of the Freshwaterways utility anyway, because that's where the money comes from for this. And that's also, if you need more money for this or the harvester, it's going to have to be an increase in that fee to pay for it somewhere. Because again, money doesn't just come out of the budget. There's $3.767 million a year that comes in, period, for everything. And we have lots of things that are on our horizon that are going to need to be dealt with. So I'd say get the professionals, knock it down, then do all our research, our due diligence, and then you get the proper harvester for your continued next umpteen years. And while we're doing it, include the cost of the structure we're going to store it in. Because as I said, the police boat was never stored and it deteriorated. And we bought that for $60-something thousand, about $62,000 when Steiner was chief of police, and then we got a grant for it. And are we looking for a grant for this too? Since we don't have a grant writer anymore.
We have people that can write grants, Randy. And I'm going to tell you that after I got here in the office, that police boat is stored and it's not out in the elements. And that's what we plan on doing, is doing something. We're not going to not do anything this year. If we couldn't buy a harvester, we're going to still do something. And that's why we had the meeting, because we have to move on it if we want to get on the schedule.
Hi, Dave Royce. I live on the Grand Canal, and last year there was a proposal for the North Grand Canal Park, and is just looking at this would mitigate with the harvester some of the fees that would be required to clear the waterways around that park, if it's still in the budget.
Yes, it would. You're right.
So I just wanted to make a comment because since 2020, I've been on both sides of this. So I've gone to every single Freshwaterways meeting with Grant, with Bruce, who's the Freshwaterways Corp, who's online, and then been on the city side of it. Only last year was the first time they'd ever brought forward something about harvesting. It was always spraying, and we were always kind of, hey, we're going to spray, and everybody'd get mad, and we had no other plans. And it's always this time of the year. So at this point, what they've done is they've not just gone out and got spraying bids like they have in the past. They got, what if we combined harvesting with spraying, and in the interim, we try and get a harvester on top of that. So it always gets talked about at this exact time. Everybody's super duper upset because ultimately we end up having to spray because we wait too long. And that's what will ultimately end up happening here. And that's why the mayor, city administrator, project manager wanted to bring it forward now, get the feedback. Clearly the feedback is more harvesting than spraying. And then the next step is get this process done and either work with Grant or find a harvester. But there are 8 positions budgeted for staff already. You're already paying for it. It's already in there. And then there's a harvester that could be purchased for less than what we do on both spraying and harvesting. So that's the big consideration. This year, it's going to be a combination. What do we want to do from this point forward? Because that's the question Freshwaterways has never been able to answer, nor has the council, and the community kind of just gets we're spraying this year. So this is the path forward.
My name is Jim Edwards. I spoke once already, but I just recently joined the Freshwater Corporation. I was asked to come help them work on the harvester. And so I came on board with them. I'm working with Grant, and we've put together a team of machinists, and we're working on the harvester at this time. And it's a lot better shape than what it looks like out there in the parking lot, but we're working with local machinists in Aberdeen and Hoquiam. I've got a volunteer team that's working on it. I'm working with Bruce, and we got our first quote back on manufacturing some parts. Our plan is to have the harvester in working condition prior to the summer, and that will benefit in possibly many ways, just to see what the advantage they have in a harvester is, to get an idea on what the maintenance of a harvester is and how much it costs to get something like this fixed. And it'll take more than one person to operate that harvester, no matter where you get. So you got to really look at the cost of labor and everything. But what I wanted to share was that the Freshwater Corporation has been proceeding ahead, and this boat, Grant was the person that put it together. And like I said, I got a team of machinists working on it, and we expect to have that in working order prior to the summer. So, and it'll be available. We can use it. You can look at it. You can get ideas from it. It's when it gets back together, it'll be quite a different boat than what you see right now.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Jeff Grill, resident of Ocean Shores. Something that's not been brought up so far is volunteers. Texmore Park last year was cleaned by a group of 6 volunteers over 2 days. And in years gone past, we've had groups of volunteers go out and collect floating logs and other floating debris out of it. So it'd be great if we could have cooperation or coordination with the city and groups of volunteers.
Volunteers get a lot of things done in this town, so yeah, that'd be great.
Hi, Jane Shattuck. I just want to touch, I've helped Grant a little bit on his harvester. I've listened to Grant and the way the harvester operates and all the things it does and everything it has done. And since we can't get a harvester this year, I want to know if it's an option. Grant knows that I'm always available to volunteer again, and he has many volunteers. But I do think it's a benefit. I think it's beneficial if he's already got another group going, and to get this going, that we do and maybe help him as much as we can. And of course, volunteers will be there, but to see what it does, to actually show the public maybe what a harvester can do, to maybe make the decision easier if that's the direction they want to go. My other concern is if the city did decide to do something with Grant and the harvester, is that all of that information, Grant built that himself, and it's all in his head. And it would be beneficial to see a lot of people get out there and pick Grant's brain and learn how to also operate and work on it and how it works. Because our Fresh Waterways Corp, we have a lot of knowledge there. And they're getting where they need people to help take over and help learn all this. There's just so not much knowledge, not just about the harvester, about all of our fresh waterways. So I again, people volunteer, get with Grant, get with Bruce. There's just so much knowledge there, but I think we just need to move it forward. And if it's beneficial to put a little bit into it, to see what it does, to see where, and like I say, give the city an example that maybe help make a decision, I think that's a good idea.
Any more questions?
So I want to riff on what Jane Shattuck just said. And for a few $1,000s and a place to put the existing harvester that the corporation owns and work on it and finish it up, we can find out just how effective a harvester would be before we spend $100,000 on the next step. So I just offered that comment. Thank you.
So they have a price quote on how much it's going to cost to fix that?
1,000.
Oh, 10,000.
Under 10,000, probably closer to 6,000, but I don't quote me on that. I wasn't the person getting the bids, but we need a storage place in order to complete the work, and we need to purchase those machined parts and then put it together. And the people putting it together are all volunteers. So what we're paying for is material and the cost of the machine work. So, and that's $6,000 to $10,000 at best current estimate.
All right.
I have a question about, like, if we went that way, what would the city be paying to the Waterway Corp about liability, insurance, or whatever, that was my two main questions. What are we going to be? What would be the cost to the city to pay them? Because it's not going to be free. There's operating costs and liability.
Well, this just brought it up 5 minutes ago, so I don't have those numbers at my fingertips. I don't know how that worked. It is something that I considered in the past, if we could get the harvester working, to go out and test it and see what it does. I do know that Doug Dorling, who was part of the group that we used last time for chemicals treatment, was going to subcontract a portion of that harvesting to test the Bell Canal for harvesting. And they estimated that just doing 2 branches of the Bell Canal would take the entire summer. But I don't know. Obviously, I'm talking to the one guy who's actually done this, so maybe you can tell us.
Yes, this is Grant Schaefer again. I've seen the north end of Grand Canal so thick with weeds that the ducks can walk across it. Mm-hmm. I've seen the entrance to Bell System so thick that the ducks could walk across it. the boats could not get through it. I've seen dead fish inside the weeds because they got tangled up and couldn't get out. So, another thing, risk management. If you spend $190,000 on a high risk thing, it's a high risk. But if you spend $10,000 or $20,000, let's say $15,000 on a low risk thing, what have you got to lose?
Yeah, I don't know if we can pay to have that repaired or not. I don't know where it gets into gifting of public funds and that kind of stuff. So we'd have to look into that.
Richard Wills, one more time, and again, I emphasize I'm talking as a trustee in the Water Corporation and as a private resident, not as a council member. I want to just make that abundantly clear. So in answer to the question asked a few moments ago, the liability and the cost, I've been a trustee for about 6.5 years and have volunteered dozens, maybe hundreds of hours on the water. The total accumulative time of all of the trustees over, I think, close to 20 years to the city has been close to zero. There has been some minor financial help to the Water Corporation. We have cut down trees. We've removed logs and docks that have been cut loose. We've done a lot of work on the waterways, and it's all been volunteer work. So what the Water Corporation is asking for is for some help to finish paying for the mechanical things that need to be completed on the harvester. And the mayor is absolutely correct in that the city absolutely has to make sure that we don't get involved in the appearance of a gifting situation. But that's a detail that can be worked out with the lawyers, and we can go from there. It just seems odd that we, the city, would ignore all of the decades of experience and work that the corporation has provided, and to ignore the current harvester that doesn't take very much more to be completed. So I'm just actually flabbergasted. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that we're ignoring anything, Richard, on that. Right now, the equipment's not running. So we've had a discussion with Grant, and we don't have a spot for that to go at the moment in the city yard. That's what he had asked us for when he met.
We did look actually at 3 different locations to house it, and just because of the length and the diameter, we actually even looked at one point, one of our pump stations over here was just a little too long for it. We couldn't get it in. But yeah, and the other problem is we don't allow, in general, anyone to access. So the Public Works team would have to take it out of the city yard every time of year to use it. You're right. We'd have to come up with, if we were to go that route, come up with a place to put it. And that's why I think Grant was at your house for a number of years, I think.
So currently, the corporation is using their own funds from their own members. The current bid that we've got in for the parts that are required to get the harvester up and running is just under $6,000. And that was presented to the board of the corporation last month. I would expect that you guys can fund it because we're a volunteer organization that helps you with your service. But I don't think it's required at this time. I think we're at the point right now that we're doing the work and we're doing it with volunteer labor. Like I said, we put together a team of machinists to help us do this. Grant's got the knowledge and he's kind of leading that part of the operation. So that's where we're at on that right now.
Thank you. What would happen if the city bought this piece of equipment from the waterways, if they sold it, title transferred, you found a place to store it? If it works, you would inspect it first, of course, and see that it works, and how much it would cost to repair it, and how much could you buy it for to get the title. And I'm just estimating $20,000 or whatever might be a way to go for the next year. See how that works while you're working on getting a better and bigger harvester.
That's a great minds think alike, because it's one of the 3 thoughts I have that I'll discuss with the mayor after this. But it's one of the things I had in my brain. So,
Good comment.
Otis Warren. I've ran into this issue with taxes many a times working with different organizations, and this city cannot use tax dollars to fund another corporation's equipment. It doesn't work that way. You would either have to buy that equipment or lease that equipment in order to repair it.
Yep, that's
correct. Right, thanks.
Debbie B., citizen. I'm wondering, is the corporation a 501c3?
Yes.
Yes.
Light bulb.
I think we need to look at PAWS and see what they're doing as far as what they're accomplishing out there with our stray animals that we have, and kind of take a leaf off of that and do what they're doing. We have a 501c3 here. We can round up when we go to the stores. You could write a check when you have a little extra money. Maybe collect aluminum cans. They're 25 cents a pound, and do some things that would benefit the whole town that way. I think we just need to step back and regroup and get this thing accomplished.
I think it's probably time to give us a chance to just vote, because people are kind of slowly leaving.
Well, I don't know about voting, but I think that everybody's pretty much told us they'd rather see harvesting versus chemical treatment of the water. Am I reading that right with everybody? Nope, you got a guy there that wants to chemically treat. Okay, that's one. All right, go ahead, Randy.
The question isn't voting here because this is not sufficient forum or quorum for the city of Ocean Shores, period. Okay? So this is only the interested people, or I'll call it the squeaky wheel as to the issue. There's a lot more people. There's 8,000 people approximately in our city. So voting is not here.
Well, obviously a nickel's not going to be spent before I take this to council. So that's
Right, I understand.
fine.
I
Yeah.
understand.
This was a chance, Randy, for people to come and talk to us.
I understand. As to the current harvester, my question is it doing it properly? Because this is the harvester that was out originally when it was built, spreading Elodia, okay, all over the place. And will it operate, the one that we're looking at temporarily, even if it's temporarily, going to do the job? As to chemicals, if we're spraying the bank and all that, that's wonderful. We're going to have to still spray the bank because the harvester only goes down the middle, basically. If we're looking at our north end of the Grand Canal, that originally was a biofilter that the city paid for because of the Oyhut Creek pollution coming into the city before they put took the septic tanks out and put in sewers. However, there's still the groundwater and I'll call it the organics, etc., coming down the Oyhut Creek. Just putting in sewers today didn't take care of the ground saturation from all the broken septic tanks up that way. So some of that stuff up there was put in purposefully, and we just never maintained it as the biofilter it was supposed to be. And if the ducks can walk on it, then we're talking again dredging. The ducks can walk on the channel at Chancellor Bridge. And the Chancellor Lake are the two conduits that supply water to the lake system. At the very north end on under Rain Street is where that water comes, and it also comes from Oyhut Creek. Those are our sources of water. If we allow that area to fill in and block, we're not getting any new water to the southern part of the lake, other than the few springs that we have and runoff from homes and from the current ditches that we have.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
The city of Ocean Shores, I've been here 27 years, and we've been uphill grind fighting this weed business for a long time. But we've got, in recent years, more cooperation between the people, the landowners, and the Freshwaterway Corporation and the city. And the number 2 boat that the Freshwaterway has was donated to us. We overhauled it at no cost to anybody. The city helped us put a new motor on it. It's got the second motor on it, and it works like a champ. And we use it continually to clearing passageways and buoy settings and all kinds of stuff. And I think if we just keep in mind, if we work together instead of trying to separate each other, but if we work together, we can get this thing accomplished and at a reasonable cost. But the thing is, with the Freshwaterway Corporation, they're going around with walkers now, and some of them are bedridden and chair-ridden, and they're not safe on the boat anymore, and that includes me. And so we need some younger people. So anyway, and to take an interest, because it takes someone who got a certain drive and interest. There's almost 2,500 lots on the Freshwaterway. There's about 25 members in the Freshwaterway Corporation. And there's about 5 people who are able to walk and get on the boat. And they're only, they're with canes. And so, we need to cooperate. And together, I think we can work this thing out.
Volunteers have done a lot and can do a lot, but I just don't feel that it should be relied upon. I think the city should have some skin in the game, and they should have some employees out there working to clean up this deal.
Just a question. Sorry for being late. I tried to Zoom, but your link didn't work. You had mentioned on the harvester that it basically goes down the center. What happens on the edges?
They make a harvester that does the edges.
So is he's saying that there's a harvester that does the edges? Is that what is currently present? Do we have that, or is that what you're looking at?
Right now, the only thing we have is obviously the vehicle that's sitting out front in the yard there. So we don't know what type of harvester we're going to purchase. We know that the bid proposals we got back were things that were only going to focus on the center and the deeper weeds, but that's for 2 reasons. Number one, the time it would take them to navigate all the docks and areas like that. And so that's like the primary obstacle to it. So, obviously if we're renting these harvesters and we're renting their personnel, we're paying them for that. So we don't have the answer of what type of harvester we're going to buy right now.
Okay, so I heard we're going to buy. So that sounds like a decision's been made. Now, and we're only doing the centers. We don't know that we're going to be doing the outside. What about us that have docks and lots that want to kayak? I don't want to be kayaking through a bunch of muck like I don't know if you people were here a long time ago, 7, 8 years ago, when you could almost walk on the water. It was horrible. When we've got a valid ability to maintain it via chemical. I know you guys probably don't like that idea. I don't know.
It's not up to me. It's what the public wants.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
I can tell you the two that are in there that, for examples in that handout, do clearing on the sides on that. So
Okay, so I'm going to go back to we're going to buy. Has that decision been made? And this is
No.
just for show.
this decision hasn't been made.
We haven't even looked at a model.
Okay.
No.
Again, I didn't catch the beginning of the meeting, so.
This comment is for Grant. Did I understand you correctly that you said there's only 25 members of the corporation, but there are 2,500 properties on the waterways? Would it be helpful then if we could encourage other property owners to join the corporation so you had a little bit more money? Then I would encourage people to do that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I know this is about harvesting and spraying and all of that, but I want to jump on about the corporation. Part of what the corporation, and correct me if I am wrong, at one point they were doing education also with property owners and things like that. And so they are a great benefit to help with property owners. And if people get involved and volunteer, but to even, there was at one time at one of the meetings brought up about flyers that could be sent out to people who live on the waterways and what chemicals to be using and not to be using, and how to clean up around your docks and things like that. And so the Corp has been beneficial in that also. But once again, they need help now too also. So.
I've been at this 27 years, and I've looked at the chemos, the harvesting, the carp, and if you go either way, you'll be unhappy. It's going to be a combination of all three, and it's a balance that we have to manage continually. We're going to have the same problem every year. The algae is not brought up, but it is a continual thing that needs to be addressed, and every year. And so it's going to have to be a combination, and we have to find the medium.
Sir, before I start, I'd like to ask you a specific question. If I stay the Fresh Waterways Corporation link for those who want to join, am I violating anything? I couldn't hear what you said.
It's on there already.
It's on our website.
The Water Corporation.
Under boards and committees, yeah.
But that's the Water Advisory Board. I'm talking about the Freshwater Corporation.
The Fresh Waterways Corporation is under the Fresh Waterways Board.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess we'll wrap this up. We've been here over an hour. Oh, Lillian's got another comment. Go ahead.
Well, I do have another comment. I've lived on the waterways here since, I believe, 1982 or 84. And when we first came, the waterways were clear and beautiful, and we caught fish all the time. And every few years, they would come in and do the chemical sprays. The signs would go up. For 24 hours, you didn't eat the fish or something. But the waterways stayed clean. Since we've started, a lot of things have happened. We became more popular because the bass fishermen wanted to fish here. I could catch bass off my dock in those days. The bass fishermen came in, and they brought their boats from all over the place. And we came up with a whole bunch of new weeds that we hadn't had. Isn't that true, Grant? you know, and then gradually things got worse. The first attempt at harvesting was a disaster, and it spread the weeds throughout. Instead of being localized by the boat launches, they got throughout our lake system. Yes, there are some people opposed to any chemicals in the water. But I got to tell you, when all we used for chemicals is the waterways stayed clean. And they aren't now. And they're not even navigable. I couldn't walk across the waterway in front of my place and get to the other side because I would get tangled in whatever is growing out there right now. I kind of agree with the people that are saying it's going to take a three-pronged approach. There's no silver bullet out there. And we do need to get started, but we need to do something fact-based. We need to understand what we're going to spend the money on and what it's going to do, because $100,000 is a big dent, or more than $100,000 in the fresh waterways. Remember, the fresh waterways are our storm drains. It encompasses much more than just the bodies of water. And I looked at one point in creating a lake district and discovered we couldn't do that because where the citizens could actually form a corporation within the city and keep the lakes clean. We cannot do that because it's part of our storm drain utility. So I don't envy you this. I can't support this immediate move. I don't think we know enough, and I do know that the chemicals work, and I don't recall dying from them. But as long as we stick within the county guidelines or the state guidelines, we should be okay to get some things started. Thank you.
Yeah, we've never talked about only harvesting. We've talked it was going to take some spraying too. So it was going to be two approaches for one attempt to keep it as clean as we can. If that's it, I want to thank everybody for showing up. Appreciate you being here on short notice. Enjoy the sunshine the rest of today.